On March 9, 1776, Adam Smith released The Wealth of Nations, and buried inside was one idea that ended up shaping how modern markets and governments work. But the thing is, most people don't actually understand that idea, and the ones who think they do, they've turned it into a moral cover for the greed-driven system we live in today. But that's not what Smith meant, not even close. His idea wasn't about letting markets run wild. It was a warning about the same kind of failures that triggered the 2008 crash. The stuff he somehow called out before big corporations even existed. So, what was Smith actually warning us about? Imagine walking into a bakery. You're starving, so you order a bagel. Other people do the same. Suddenly, bagels are high in demand and the shelf starts emptying. The bakery notices this and decides to bake more. They're not doing it to help anyone, they just want to make more money. Now, more bagels are available for everyone. Prices rise a little, but supply keeps up. Your friends, neighbors, and even people passing by all gets bagel they wouldn't have had if the bakery ignored the demand. Next door, another bakery notices the crowd. They're losing customer and money. So they try a simple idea. Sell bagels a little cheaper, and it works. The competition makes quality better and prices lower. Now everyone has more choices and better bagels. All because these businesses are trying to succeed on their own. Even the wheat farmers benefit. They grow more wheat to meet the bakery's orders, creating jobs and income. But no one told the bakeries or farmers to do this. They're all following their own goals. All this happens automatically. People acting in their own self-interest, wanting to eat, wanting to earn, end up making life better for everyone. That's the invisible hand, the idea Smith presented in The Wealth of Nations. The bakery story is simple, but it shows Smith's real insight. The baker isn't baking good bread because they are nice or they want to give away food. They're baking good bread because they want customers and profits. But as a result of chasing their own goals, society ends up better off. Smith believed that markets work best when people act reasonably, follow rules, and are guided by moral behavior and social norms. If a baker cheats, selling stale bagels, raising prices too high, or hoarding supplies, the system breaks down. Maybe not all at once, but slowly. This is why Smith talked about restraint and responsibility. He assumed people would naturally follow certain social rules, fairness, honesty, and respect for others' property. In other words, the economy isn't a miracle machine. It works only when people make smart choices in fair markets. But this is where the misunderstanding began. A moral idea slowly became a slogan for greed. In 1970, Milton Friedman wrote a line that would echo across the world. The social responsibility of a business is to increase its profits. It sounded simple, but it changed what capitalism meant. Ironically, barely anyone noticed the subtitle Friedman added after this quote, "Within the bounds of law and ethics." Almost everyone ignored that part. Today, if you search for the definition of capitalism, you'll see an economic system where private individuals or corporations own the means of production, such as factories and land, and use them for profit. Notice the word profit. That word has been misunderstood and used in the wrong way over time. Profit doesn't mean making money by any means. It doesn't mean cutting wages, cheating workers, or only chasing shareholder value. This is where it all went wrong. The ideas of economists like Adam Smith and Milton Friedman were twisted, not by the thinkers themselves, but by the corporations that wanted to make more profit at any cost. Why? To pull in more investor money faster. They ignored Smith's other book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, where he literally warned that greed could collapse an entire economy. Smith's message was simple: markets only work when people restrain themselves with honesty, fairness, and responsibility. During Hurricane Harvey in 2017, bottled water prices jumped from 400 to 500% in the affected areas. Ordinary people, desperate for essentials, were exploited when they were most vulnerable. The market responded to scarcity with greed, not care. Smith said markets only work when moral restraint exists, and here, the lack of ethics caused real harm. Smith saw this centuries ago. The consequences didn't stay in his textbook. Now take the 2008 crash. Banks were giving out subprime mortgages like candy. Investment firms bundled risky bets into financial products. Executives got enormous bonuses. Everyone chased profit and no one thought about the consequences. Foreclosures in the US peaked at 2.8 million in 2019, wiping out $19 trillion in global wealth. It wasn't just numbers, it was families losing homes, retirees losing pensions, and a whole generation seeing their dreams delayed or destroyed. This wasn't chaos, it was exactly what Smith warned about: unchecked self-interest destroying the society. And it's not just one crisis. Look at the price gouging in disasters. On October 22, 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit hit the Caribbean and US East Coast. Some flight prices out of New York spiked over 1,000%. Families desperate to leave areas that were hit by the storm had impossible choices. The market responded to urgency with profit, not ethics. But it gets worse in healthcare. In 2015, the price of the drug called Daraprim was raised overnight from $1,350 to $750 per pill by Turing Pharmaceuticals. Patients with life-threatening conditions suddenly faced bills they couldn't pay. Insurers covered the difference, driving up premiums for everyone. The company called it market dynamics, but the result punished vulnerable people by rewarding monopoly control. Today, big tech quietly dominates whole entire markets. Facebook, also known as Meta, owns WhatsApp and Instagram, controlling 3.5 billion users worldwide. Yes, billion. That's almost half the planet interacting on platforms Meta controls. When small startups try to compete, they're either bought are crushed by the algorithm changes, advertisers pay more, and users' choices are manipulated from what news they see to who they interact with. Smith would call this merchants conspiring against the public, but today it's framed as network efficiency, all under the banner of free markets. But really, it's exactly what Smith predicted. Powerful players quietly colluding to get profit at public's expense. This problem isn't just occasional. It's everywhere. Big corporations spend lots of money to change rules, saying they get in the way. Big Oil spent $125 million lobbying the US Congress in 2020 alone. Laws that could help renewable energy or regulate pollutions were stalled. The public suffers. Higher energy costs, worse climate events, and fewer options. Smith feared concentrated power more than government itself. Here, corporate power distort both democracy and the market. The richest people keep getting richer, while wages stay low and most people struggle. Self-interest has become a license to take as much wealth as possible, and Smith would have recognized it instantly. He also warned about employers and wages. He knew business owners naturally try to pay as little as possible while workers struggle. Look around today. Fights over a minimum wage, gig work exploitation, declining unions. In 2022, Amazon's top 10% earned 11 times more than the bottom 10%, while many gig workers earned under $10 an hour. Workers juggle multiple jobs, long hours, and no benefits, while shareholders and executive profits. Smith warned that employers push wages down. Unchecked, this becomes extreme. What he feared is now normal. Labor bears the cost of profit maximization. But here's the part I want to stress. Smith predicted corporate greed centuries before corporations even existed. Every crisis, monopoly, lobbying campaign, and wage struggle, he saw it coming. And yet, because his warnings were ignored, the world we live in today is exactly what he feared. But what if we had listened to Adam Smith? What if capitalism had followed the moral compass he imagined, instead of being hijacked by those chasing profit at all costs? It might have been amazing. Self-interest could have created instead of destroyed, pushing businesses to innovate, solve real problems, and improve lives. Competition would have been fair, not a cover for monopolies. Markets might have been ruled by ethics as much as numbers, rewarding honesty and long-term thinking. Prosperity, Smith believed, wasn't just about money, it needed virtue. And yet, maybe it wouldn't have worked. Human ambition is messy, short-term, and selfish. Even with rules, people twist them and chase gain over good. Maybe self-interest always leans towards taking, not contributing, and even ethical capitalism would have struggled. Smith was optimistic about moral restraint, but restraint is fragile when money and power are involved. So what would capitalism have been? Better, maybe brilliant, or just a different version of the inequality and exploitation we know today? The answer isn't clear, but one thing is certain. The system Smith imagined could have worked if people acted responsibly. That's the paradox. The invisible hand wasn't broken. It wasn't a flawed idea waiting to fail. It was misused, twisted, and hijacked by the very people it was supposed to guide. The most misunderstood idea in economics wasn't wrong. The problem wasn't the theory. The problem was the people who abused it.